The answer appears to be that this policy, sugar-coated with a light dusting of so-called affordability, is interim to a citywide rezoning plan that is currently being concocted behind closed doors, and which will soon be sprung on a largely unsuspecting public without meaningful engagement at the neighborhood level. This is in marked contrast to CityPlan, which incorporated the input of scores of thousands of homeowners, renters, and business proprietors in producing a city of neighborhoods paradigm rooted in a commitment to neighborhood-based planning processes, which recognizes that while all areas need to adapt to the demands of population growth, with moderate increases in density and housing diversity, including more affordable options, the form and character of our neighborhoods vary, and what is appropriate for Dunbar is not necessarily appropriate for Marpole or South Cambie. What would work well in parts of Grandview would not necessarily work well in Fraserview. In some neighborhoods, for example, it may make more sense to allow community vision-supported new housing types around parks and schools rather than adjacent to arterials. From what I can ascertain, the citywide rezoning plan, for which this interim policy is the forerunner, is that it embraces a one-size-fits-all approach to land use planning, which appeals to realtors and developers and serves offshore investors that purchase condo pre-sales sight unseen in one of the world's last remaining hot housing markets. Even though the panel that came up with the recommendations that led to this interim policy was headed up by a developer and was dominated by the development industry, I don't wish to impugn the motives of the participants, some of whom I know are sincerely committed to improving housing affordability. But they faced insurmountable obstacles due to restrictive terms of reference. For example, they were not allowed to consider systemic reforms needed to constrain speculation and inflation, the sorts of reforms that other cities in our situation, Sydney, Melbourne, Hong Kong, and even cities of the Chinese mainland, have been putting in place. As a consequence, investors with huge amounts of surplus capital have increasingly focused on Vancouver, with the active encouragement of our mayor and his colleagues on council, both Vision and NPA, who, as we know, solicit millions in campaign contributions from real estate interests, an outrageous and unacceptable conflict of interest. One senior planner told me recently that he doesn't expect there will be much interest from developers in pursuing rezoning under this interim policy. The Son of Stir policy, which was created and approved without public input or support, provides better incentives. And special interests are lobbying hard for citywide rezoning policies that don't require purpose-built rentals, price covenants on condos, or that expand the rate of change bylaw to include existing rentals that are not currently protected. In fact, this interim policy may result in the loss of more genuinely affordable housing than it creates. In short, this is being used as window dressing for the fine edge of a wedge designed to destroy city plan and neighborhood-based planning, which Vision Vancouver promised to uphold. In closing, I want to say it is not enough for those who have been actively involved in the community process, many of whom I see here today, to protest in front of City Hall. We must build the kind of grassroots movement that can effectively counter the big money that threatens to transform our city of neighborhoods into a city of speculators. And finally, I'd like to quote my mother, the urbanist, planning critic, and economist Jane Jacobs, who used to say, in order for a city to work well for everyone, it needs to be planned by everyone. Thank you.